Have you ever wondered why some prayers feel like whispers lost in the wind, while others seem to carry weight, echoing into eternity with power that shakes both heaven and earth? Deep down, you already know that prayer is not just words. It is energy, intention, faith, and surrender woven together into something that transcends human strength. And when prayer takes the form of the Rosary, it becomes something even greater, something that unites heaven and earth in a way no distraction, no darkness, and no doubt can silence. The Rosary is not a relic, not an outdated tradition. It is a lifeline, a weapon, and a source of hope for anyone who dares to believe in its power. Ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, the Rosary is more than beads sliding through your fingers. It is a spiritual key, unlocking doors you cannot see, but doors that hold everything you long for: healing, peace, strength, and victory. Each bead is a reminder that you are not alone, that the battles you face in silence are not fought in vain. With every Hail Mary, you are not simply repeating words. You are aligning yourself with heaven's rhythm, with the mysteries that shape salvation itself. These prayers are echoes of eternity, carrying the weight of angels, saints, and the faithful who prayed before you, standing strong against storms that looked impossible to overcome. The Rosary takes ordinary words and fills them with extraordinary power, because it is not about the words alone, but the faith that fuels them. Each Our Father is not just a request, but a surrender of control, a declaration that your life is not random, but guided by hands stronger than your fears. Each Hail Mary is not just reverence, but a bridge into divine comfort, where a mother's love meets a broken heart and lifts it higher. Each Glory Be is not just praise, but a reminder that even now, even here, eternity is present in your life. And when these prayers are joined together bead by bead, they form a chain unbreakable by despair, unshaken by suffering, and unstoppable by darkness. What makes the Rosary so powerful is not simply the structure, but the mystery behind it. It is a prayer of memory, pulling you back into the great works of God across history, reminding you that He has never abandoned His people and He will never abandon you. It is also a prayer of prophecy, declaring victory over every struggle you have yet to face. When you pray the Rosary, you are reminding your soul that no battle is final, no defeat permanent, no pain wasted. And that is why this prayer holds power. It teaches endurance when you feel weak. It builds courage when fear surrounds you. And it awakens faith when hopelessness whispers that nothing will change. Stay with me, because as this journey unfolds, you will discover how the Rosary is not just prayer, but power. Power that heals, restores, and transforms your life in ways you cannot yet imagine. The human mind is constantly restless, pulled in 1,000 directions, filled with noise that never seems to stop. Worries replay like broken records, doubts creep in at the quietest moments, and fear builds walls that block peace from ever taking root. Yet the Rosary enters that chaos like a calming rhythm, a steady heartbeat that silences the storm inside. Its repetition is not empty, it is medicine. Modern psychology shows us how repeated focus calms the nervous system, slows the breath, and anchors a scattered mind. But when that repetition is wrapped in faith, in divine truth, it does something no earthly practice can accomplish. It transforms the soul. What begins as prayer on your lips becomes strength in your spirit. Each bead draws you away from panic and closer to peace. Each prayer gently pulls your thoughts back from wandering toward despair and centers them in hope. The Rosary teaches the discipline of focus, the patience of trust, and the endurance of faith. In a world that glorifies instant results and quick solutions, the Rosary whispers a different truth. The deepest victories are not rushed. They are cultivated. The more you pray it, the more you understand that perseverance is not weakness, it is power. Strength is not built in the absence of struggle, but through it. And the Rosary becomes the rhythm that keeps you steady when everything else tries to shake you. You may start praying with fear heavy in your chest, but as the words flow, something shifts. The weight does not vanish instantly, but the chains of anxiety begin to loosen. Your heart, once racing, finds a calmer beat. And in that calmness, space is made for grace to move. Every moment of prayer in the Rosary is a surrender, a letting go of control that was never really yours to hold. You discover that Not every problem needs an immediate solution. Not every question needs an instant answer. And not every storm must terrify you. Instead, prayer invites you into alignment with something greater. You are not begging for scraps of hope. You are stepping into a river of endless strength. The Rosary is not about empty repetition. It is about immersion. It immerses you into a presence where fear no longer dictates your choices, where doubt no longer writes your story, and where despair no longer defines your tomorrow. Miracles have been born from this prayer, not because the beads hold power, but because faith poured through them awakens heaven's movement on earth. When you commit to the Rosary, you are saying yes to transformation. You are saying yes to peace over panic, yes to strength over weakness, yes to faith over fear. And the more you hold to that yes, the more unshakable you become. The storms may rage, but the rhythm of the Rosary keeps you standing tall with courage unbroken and faith alive. Healing through the Rosary is not always loud or dramatic. Often it is quiet, deep, and unseen until one day you realize the weight you carried is no longer crushing you. It begins with a simple act of turning your heart toe, hard prayer, and allowing the rhythm to wash over wounds you thought would never close. The healing may touch the body, bringing relief where pain once lingered, but even more powerfully, it touches the soul. Anxiety that once robbed you of rest begins to loosen its grip. Bitterness that poisoned relationships starts to dissolve. Fear that clouded your mind with shadows loses its ability to control you. Each bead becomes like medicine, soothing what words cannot express, filling gaps that human comfort could never reach. This healing does not mean the absence of scars, but the transformation of scars into strength. The Rosary teaches you that pain can be redeemed, that what once broke you can now become a testimony of survival and faith. When you pray the sorrowful mysteries, you learn that suffering is not the end, but the path to resurrection. When you pray the joyful mysteries, you rediscover the beauty of beginnings, the way God surprises the weary heart with new life. And in the luminous and glorious mysteries, you are reminded that even in a world filled with darkness, light always rises and triumph is always promised. Healing is not always immediate, but it is always certain when prayer is constant, because prayer aligns you with a source that never runs dry. Every repetition of the Rosary is a gentle reminder that you are not powerless. You may not control the timing of outcomes, but you do control the posture of your heart. A heart surrendered in prayer is a heart that cannot be defeated, because it no longer fights alone. Healing flows when faith is steady, when hope is guarded, and when love is invited back into places it was once pushed out. The Rosary does not simply change circumstances, it changes perception. Suddenly, what once felt unbearable becomes an opportunity to grow. What once looked impossible becomes a stage for miracles, and what once seemed hopeless becomes the soil for new beginnings. When you commit to the Rosary, you invite a slow but steady renewal into every part of your life. Mental clarity sharpens. Emotional weight lifts. Spiritual strength builds. And though not every prayer ends with the miracle you pictured, every prayer opens the door for a miracle you needed more deeply. The healing power of the Rosary is not about escape from pain, but about transformation through it. It teaches you that even in weakness, you are being strengthened. Even in sorrow, you are being comforted. And even in silence, heaven is still working. This is the promise that keeps you pressing forward one bead at a time until peace that surpasses understanding becomes the very atmosphere of your soul. The Rosary is not only a channel of peace and healing, it is also a weapon forged for battle, a shield against the invisible forces that war against your soul. Life is not simply a series of physical challenges, but a field of unseen struggles where doubt, fear, and temptation fight to take root. Anxiety does not come from nowhere. Despair does not rise without reason, and anger is not born without cause. These are battles of the Spirit, and to face them without prayer is to fight unarmed. The Rosary places a sword in your hand, not one of steel, but one sharper, stronger, and undefeatable. Every prayer cuts through lies that whisper defeat. Every bead reinforces the wall of faith around your heart. Every mystery proclaimed is a declaration that darkness has limits, but God does not. When temptation presses hard and despair rises like a tide, the Rosary steadies your ground. It reminds you that you are not fighting alone. Each Hail Mary is a cry that joins with heaven's army, a voice that calls light into the shadows that surround you. Evil cannot withstand a heart surrendered to prayer. The Rosary frustrates every scheme of the enemy because it clothes the soul in courage, it guards the mind with clarity, and it strengthens the spirit with resilience. You may not see the battle, but you will feel its victory. When peace overcomes panic, when strength returns in weakness, when light enters where fear once ruled. These are not accidents. They are the results of a weapon used with faith. The Rosary is not superstition, it is strategy. It draws you out of isolation and connects you to power greater than yourself. Spiritual warfare is real, but it is not meant to terrify you. It is meant to awaken you. Prayer is your line of defense, your line of strength, and your line of victory. The Rosary is structured, disciplined, and focused, teaching you to stay unshaken when storms rise. Each repetition is not empty. It is relentless persistence against forces that want to see you fall. You are not weak when you pray. You are at your strongest because you are no longer relying on yourself, but on a God who has never lost a battle. Every bead you hold becomes an act of defiance against despair, an act of courage against fear, an act of faith against darkness. The enemy trembles not at your weakness, but at your persistence. Not at your doubts, but at your decision to pray anyway. The Rosary builds unbreakable resilience in your spirit, and with each prayer you rise stronger, more focused, more fearless. When life attacks, do not retreat. Hold the beads, speak the prayers, and stand in faith. For in that moment, you are not a victim of the battle. You are a warrior of light, and victory is already written in your favor. The Rosary does more than protect. It awakens the truth of who you are. Too often, the world tries to strip you of identity, convincing you that you are just another number, another voice lost in the crowd, another soul too small to matter. But prayer realigns you with your divine origin and destiny. Every repetition draws you back to the reality that you are chosen, you are called, you are destined for more than ordinary survival. The Rosary speaks to the deepest part of your spirit, telling you that you were created with purpose and that no force of darkness see and erase what God has already written over your life. With each prayer, identity is reclaimed. With each meditation, the veil of confusion is lifted and you begin to see yourself not through fear or failure, but through the eyes of heaven. This awakening shifts the way you see your struggles. What once looked like punishment begins to look like preparation. What once seemed like defeat begins to shine as opportunity. The Rosary changes your posture in life. You no longer pray as someone begging for scraps of hope, but as someone who knows they belong to a kingdom of unshakable strength. This identity fuels courage when forgiving feels impossible. It fuels patience when the waiting feels unbearable. And it fuels endurance when the journey feels endless. The Rosary becomes the constant reminder that you are not broken beyond repair and you are not wandering without direction. You are a child of light, and light cannot be hidden even in the darkest places. Every mystery you pray is a mirror reflecting a truth about your own path. In the joyful moments, you remember the beauty of beginnings and the promise of hope. In the sorrowful ones, you learn that pain refines rather than destroys. In the luminous ones, you recognize that purpose is revealed step by step. In the glorious mysteries, you stand in the certainty that victory is already secured. This reflection shapes you into someone unshakable, someone who no longer defines themselves by failures but by resilience, someone who no longer measures life by setbacks but by the strength to rise again. The Rosary does not just change circumstances, it changes character. It turns wandering souls into disciplined hearts, fearful spirits into courageous warriors, and passive lives into active missions. Identity becomes anchored, no longer drifting with the currents of the world. You begin to walk with a confidence that cannot be shaken because it is no longer built on temporary things. You rise from prayer not as the same person who entered, but as one renewed, strengthened, and awakened. And with that awakening comes clarity. You are here for a reason. Your life carries eternal weight, and through the Rosary, you carry within you a power that no storm, no doubt, and no enemy can ever take away. The Rosary is not a small practice reserved for moments of convenience. It is a discipline that reshapes an entire life. Every time you choose it over distraction, you train your spirit to rise above the noise of the world. Every time you commit to it in silence, you prove that stillness carries more power than chaos. Every time you hold the beads with trembling hands, you remind yourself that strength does not mean the absence of fear, but the courage to pray through it. The Rosary is a call to live differently, to walk with focus when the world pushes you towards scattering, to seek depth when everything around you chases shallow comfort. It demands surrender, and in that surrender, it returns to you a strength that no earthly source can match. Through the Rosary, you declare that faith is greater than fear, hope is stronger than despair, and love is mightier than hatred. Each prayer becomes an act of resistance against the currents that try to pull you under. You resist the lie that you are powerless. You resist the temptation to quit. You resist the voices that say nothing will change. The Rosary teaches you that change begins not outside, but inside, in the heart that refuses to let go of faith, even when every circumstance tries to break it. And as the change begins within, the world around you cannot help but feel its impact. You become a vessel of calm where chaos used to reign, a voice of encouragement where despair once echoed, a light of courage where fear had spread its shadow. The discipline of prayer is not always easy, but it is always worth it. The Rosary trains your soul in endurance, and endurance builds character. It is through persistence that the Spirit becomes unshakable. Through repetition that faith becomes second nature. Through surrender that victory is won. You may not always feel the power in the moment, but prayer is not about feelings. It is about faithfulness. And faithfulness always yields fruit in time. The seeds you plant with every bead, every whispered prayer, every quiet moment of focus will grow into strength that surprises you when trials return. What once would have shattered you will no longer move you because the Rosary has rooted you in something far deeper than circumstances. Every choice to pick it up is a choice to live with greater courage, greater clarity, and greater confidence. You step out of prayer with the awareness that you are not abandoned, that the struggles ahead are not greater than the strength within, and that no obstacle can stand against a life anchored in divine presence. This is the reward of the Rosary, transformation not just of moments, but of identity, of perspective, of destiny. And when you commit to it, you step fully into the truth that miracles are not far away. They are already unfolding, one prayer at a time. The Rosary is a daily invitation to rise above everything that tries to weaken your spirit. It is not about adding another task to a busy life, but about anchoring your soul in the one thing that cannot be shaken. When you choose to pray, you silence the noise that demands your attention, and you enter into a rhythm that aligns you with strength greater than your own. The beads remind you to slow down, to breathe, to trust, to release the weight you were never meant to carry alone. Each prayer spoken is a declaration that no matter what battles rage around you, faith remains stronger. This is how transformation takes root. Not in sudden bursts, but in steady commitment that reshapes the way you think, the way you feel, and the way you live. Every time you return to the Rosary, you are building walls of resilience around your heart. You are strengthening your eye. An air foundation so that storms cannot shake you, critics cannot break you, and fear cannot control you. The discipline creates a stability that nothing else can match because it is not rooted in human willpower, but in divine presence. It teaches you that consistency is the key to power. It shows you that true strength is not in loud displays, but in quiet perseverance. The Rosary becomes a lifestyle, a daily choice to remain anchored when the world pushes you toward collapse. This is not weakness. It is the highest form of courage. When you pray, you are not only protecting your spirit, you are transforming your future. Every bead you hold carries intention. Every prayer you whisper carries momentum. Every mystery you meditate on plants seeds that will one day bloom into miracles you cannot yet see. Life's challenges will still come, but you will meet them differently. Fear will still knock, but it will no longer find a home in you. Doubt will still whisper, but faith will speak louder. The Rosary trains you to walk in alignment with a truth that never fails. And in that alignment, victory is not a possibility. It is a certainty. This is why the Rosary cannot be treated as optional. It is the foundation on which strength is built, the weapon by which battles are won, and the channel through which peace flows. It teaches your heart to stay calm when everything around you falls apart. It teaches your mind to stay focused when distractions demand your attention. It teaches your soul to stay rooted when storms rage against you. And as you remain faithful, transformation becomes undeniable. You rise from prayer not only renewed but unshakable. You carry within you the peace of heaven, the strength of faith, and the courage of a warrior. And with these you walk into life fully alive, ready, and victorious.